start.
All set.
And you all have an agenda in front of you. The first thing says confirm committee membership, so I guess that means we'll start with it, Tom. Are you willing to serve on the committee again this year?
Yes,
Presume that you are, and you continue to be the select board's appointee. I
yes,
presume?
that was
Right.
decided at selectmen's meeting.
Good, and Sal, you're willing to serve, and I'm willing to serve as well. So that's item
Jen
one.
has no choice.
We do
Yeah.
have. We do have a question in that regard.
Actually.
Last year, we said it would be a good idea to get an alternate, and the Board of Selectmen appointed Mark Houston to be the alternate. He can't do anymore.
Right.
The question I want to ask the committee, that was the first and only year we had an alternate. I think it's a good idea. What do you guys think? And if so, how do we get an alternate? Do we ask the Board of Selectmen to appoint one?
Well, I think if you wanna add an alternate, which I think it's always a good idea. Is basically we could put a note in the newsletter and, see if there's anybody
See
interested.
if somebody's interested.
Alright.
Just try to do
Okay.
that, have Monica do that, and then see if we get somebody who's interested, and then they can put their name forth to the select board. And then they can appoint.
Okay,
Great. Good
so
idea. Let's
why don't we do that then? Monica, can you get?
That way nobody can
Do you need
say
some
they were
words
left
from one of us to help you with
Love
that?
that
If
idea.
you'd like to, yeah.
Let's vet it.
Yeah, okay, I'll-
Yeah, no, but I mean, the
Higher.
problem has been, the select board says, oh, we got this list of people
Yeah,
that will serve as alternates, and then somebody comes in and says, when did that happen?
Yeah.
This way,
Hey, Claude, I'll
everybody
make a
has a
motion.
chance.
Claude, I'll make a
Yes,
motion
go
that
ahead.
we ask the town to solicit for alternate, proposal for alternate to the CIP.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. So I'll send you some words to help you with that posting.
That'd be
Now,
fantastic.
today is Wednesday, so you need them by when? By tomorrow noon?
Tomorrow would be fantastic.
All right. All right, item 2. Selection of the chair for this year.
I move it be Claude.
I'll second that.
I decline. No, seriously, I decline. I've been the chair for 8 years now.
So you're familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it. But I declined for, I'll say, a number of personal reasons. On the other hand, I would like to nominate Sal Garcia to be the chair. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll do it. I'll
It's
do
yours.
it.
All right.
I was
you can
just-
carry on.
Same as
there.
if you weren't here, they would have nominated you if you weren't here, right?
That's right.
Kids.
I would have railroaded you.
Sorry,
Okay,
not an issue. Got it. We'll be fine.
great. So that brings us to number 3, which is discussion of scope. If you want to pick it up from there, Sal.
Oh, now I'm actually the
It's up to
guy.
you. Or do you want to start next meeting?
I start next meeting.
Okay, I mean, this is all organizational anyway.
Yes, good.
All right, fine. So discussion of scope. The reason I mentioned scope is we changed a couple things last year. There were a couple of things we intended to add to the scope, but we didn't get to them last year and so on. I think I listed those items here. Number 1, building maintenance, or I should say capital repairs to buildings is probably a more accurate way to say it. Last year we had a couple of those entries in the plan, but not necessarily all of them looking forward for, let me say, 10 years.
Right.
I think that was our intent last year.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that for a couple minutes now. Is that our intent this year? Do you plan to look at buildings in a more comprehensive way?
Yes,
And perhaps get some more projects out there that might be 5 and 6 and 7 years in the future?
yes, I mean, the issue is. We keep finding so many. Little things that we don't
Right.
see cropping up, like. We thought that, we had fixed the front of the highway garage, it was leaking water and on the
Right.
computers.
Right.
Well, we had another flood and we're like, did that fail? And
Oh.
no. And then nobody could figure out where it was coming from. It was assumed it was roof. When we went and started looking, it wasn't the roof. There was just one of those little 5-gallon hot water heaters up in the mezzanine that nobody knew was behind everything. It hit the
It
connections
ruptured.
had failed and ruptured and it just running water down the
Yeah.
gutters. And now we got a whole nother set of issues. So we're trying.
So it's an example.
You know what I mean? So it's like, we're trying to identify, and actually one of the big items that we're gonna find out here in the next few weeks probably is the museum and the issue it has with the rot and that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
front, that front thing. So we're gonna be gathering more information and then,
I thought we were gonna deal with the museum porch before.
well,
last
they
year
just,
fiscal year.
nobody got it before the winter.
We didn't.
So they're working on figuring out what we're gonna have
Got
to do
it, got
there.
it.
So
All right. So
hopefully.
those are examples.
Basically, there's a couple things that we wanna look at. Well, first of all, now that we've had the vote,
We didn't
and there
get the
was
money.
and there was some minor adjustments to the plan by the budget committee, and then the voters adjusted one other one, which was the buildings reserve fund. For some reason,
Yeah.
that failed by 13 votes, but
Yeah,
the $2.7 million bond passed by like 85.
I couldn't understand why that one
I
was
was
like that.
Okay, well, the best example of
only one that
this
didn't
makes no,
pass.
nothing that was in there made any sense was. There was the 3 police warrant articles.
Yeah,
One was to delete the warrant,
Yeah.
to delete the reserve fund, 'cause it was
yeah,
incorrect.
and then recreate one.
Well, the delete one was 90% voted
Yeah.
for. Recreating it barely passed, like
Oh,
55-45,
Oh.
but then buying the cruiser passed by a lot.
Buying the
It's like-
cruiser had a higher vote
I don't know.
than deleting.
It was just like
No
weird,
accounting
I
for
was trying to
people when
put
they
some
get
logic to
little-
this, so I could see
Oh,
what
yeah.
people were happy with, and I couldn't follow any of it.
No, I know.
So we're gonna add, we're gonna continue to add building maintenance and building.
So
Yes, correct.
building,
Okay.
let's not call it maintenance, that might
It's-
be my
it's-
bad.
Capital,
should be
capital
capital
improvements,
repairs.
capital
Okay.
improvements, not repairs. The
Is-
word is the
is-
devil.
Capital improvements.
Isn't that part of what Carrie Ann had a problem with in
Well, that's why I was
doing
hoping
the
she could
budget?
come today. to
Well,
tell us
her
that
issue is there was some confusion with the revenue side versus because the revenue coming from the reserve funds.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be going over that before our next meeting and Carrie Ann will be here. And hopefully my first plan is to get the program updated to what actually is happening.
Yes.
Like what the actual plan is. Now we know the 2.7 million, we know all the different things, is make sure all those are clean for what we're doing right now. And
Okay,
then we can start talking about the next year, which would be typically June 4th, which you have your next meeting, but I'm just gonna be coming home.
well, don't know yet if that's gonna work.
Well, I'm just saying, it's
We'll
not
talk
gonna
about
work for me,
that. Fine.
only
We'll talk about
because
it. Well,
my 40th anniversary this year, I'm going away for 2 weeks leading up to
good for
that.
you. So
We're going.
let's not get ahead of ourselves, the dates were all
So what I'm
tentative.
saying is we're gonna, basically, I hope basically to have a clean document that we can talk about.
Mhm.
And we can actually, let's call it circle the spots that we wanna fill in, I'll talk about some proposals and say what items do we wanna fill, and we start pricing it. And then we'll start getting work
Okay.
done, so we're early this year.
Well,
One step at
I'd
a
like,
time.
I'd like to
Sounds
back
fine.
up. I'd
Yeah,
like to back
yeah.
up from that just a minute,
Right,
because I don't understand the interlocking of the CIP report,
With the budget.
recommendations to the budget committee, and
good.
how that winds up
Right.
in the budget.
Right.
So
So I can't,
I have a
Well, that's what-
suggestion in that
I can't
regard.
follow that, and it
Agreed.
may be I'm ignorant, but
So
Well, that's a
Tom, if
fact.
I may, I have a suggestion on that. That's why I was hoping Carrie would come today. But if she's not available, that's fine, because she and I had a quick email back and forth.
That's all that.
And you're right, she expressed some confusions. I was able to answer part of it because she answered me back that what I told her was helpful. But I'm not sure that really dealt with the full matter.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna suggest that we put that on the agenda for next time to have a little more careful discussion about the integration of the CIP and the general budget and all that with Carrie in here. And let her explain to us what other issues that from last year she learned from that perhaps we could do differently this year.
The
So I'm
issue,
gonna suggest we handle that at the next meeting with Carrie in here.
that's fine.
and that's
fine.
part of the upgrading the program with all the things from the budget, because one of the weird things that happened that was confusing, and I can, the best example I can give is the lease. Okay, the lease, when you look at the capital program, it has X amount of dollars in there to go to capital equipment. Okay, and it was 200 and something $1,000. All right, but because of the way the thing was set up and we were fixing the warrant articles, the 169,000 that was approved at last year's budget was left in the operating budget, and only the difference was put into the reserve fund because the payments were coming out of there anyway. So that's where some of the confusion is, because some of them were split because we didn't know. Another example is the paving. Okay, you talk about the paving in the capital budget and the plan we put together. But we didn't, we weren't sure that the reserve fund would be created, so we only put $10,000 to open it. The rest of the money's in the operating budget. So this year there was a lot of
So
crossover.
we'll talk about all that, we'll carry on next
Yeah.
time.
So
I'm
we want
sorry,
to
we
clean,
gotta
we
back
just
up.
got to clarify all of that.
I was gonna
And
say,
just one thing, excuse me one second, we need somebody, besides the chair, we need someone to take minutes. Should have done that a few minutes ago, pardon me, Scott.
I'll do it.
Will you volunteer to do the minutes? I nominate.
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you. We should give you a couple of minutes here to catch up on what we've done then. Okay, so Scott, hold that thought for a second, if you don't mind. So the first couple of things are on the agenda, right?
Yep.
If you want to make note of this thing about discussion of the budget versus CIP next time, that might be worthwhile to note.
Claude, what
And
how would you get-
representative will you be now?
Pardon?
Public,
I will be, no, I'm the planning board representative.
planning board, okay,
Public representative is still Tom,
okay.
right? And select board and budget committee. I'm still a planning board representative. Okay, good. All right, I'm sorry, Scott, I
Okay,
stopped
no,
you there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
where when I was going through a bunch of these numbers and stuff, where I see part of the problem is what Chet was talking about, where some of these numbers, because we didn't know if the plan was going to take off. Some of these numbers, I think what we need to do is in our CIP plan, we're going to have to make footnote that this is our grand plan, but it's not, all of those dollars aren't necessarily in one account. That we need to kind of footnote that some of these numbers that we have there are, i.e. $160,000 in general budget. Say $80,000 in capital reserve to make up that number, because some of your capital reserve accounts have to be kept separated from some of your other general accounts. So I think we're going to end up having a footnote.
So if I may, that was true this past year. There was that combination of funding,
Mhm.
as Chet said, because we were not sure that the voters would approve the capital reserve fund. That confusion should not exist going forward.
Correct.
That's
Capital
right.
funds should be completely separate from general fund.
That's right, but
And each one is.
yeah, but I'm saying
individual,
that
fire,
we
police.
had to create some
This
confusion.
past year, yeah.
Yeah, this past year to
But
guarantee
that's
we
all-
had money for the
all we did.
payments we were making.
Right,
Because the issue this year is like, okay, people are gonna look, and this is this is gonna be the next problem, and I'll go to the
Okay.
paving one, because it's the easiest one
Sure.
to show. Because the bond number went up when we were planning.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to have to increase the reserve fund allocation by 100,000. We were gonna put 100,000 to the total CIP each year for the next 5 years. Well, it's kind of all gonna have to go to paving the first year, and then, so I'm gonna have to make those adjustments. But when you look at, we put $10,000 into that fund, next year it's gonna be 500. Okay, that's gonna be,
500,000
yes,
into that fund, wow.
yeah, that's gonna be the education, because we were supposed to put $447,000 in this year.
Hmm.
Okay, but it's gonna go to like 510.
I-
Okay, but
yeah,
but it was in
Because
the
the bond
operating
going up.
fund,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it's the reserve fund.
Right, right.
And if people turn down the reserve fund, then we got an issue. So we have to, we gotta work this
Ooh.
process.
Hmm,
Okay, because the bond payment is in there, and also the additional work we have to do. So this is one of the education or public outreach things we have to do, or we may have to have one more year of split. Well, that's the kind of stuff we're gonna have to work
If I
on.
may, a reaction to that on the bond payment side of it. I seem to recall from a couple of years ago now, so
Mhm.
a little rusty, that once the voters accept a multi-year contract requirement, such as a lease or a bond, that it does not have to be subject to their subsequent approval in later years.
No,
If
it's-
that approval carries forward to the end of that commitment,
And that's correct.
okay?
But what we're doing is, and it's one of the things I don't like the way New Hampshire does it, with the reserve funds. every reserve fund has to be voted on individually.
True,
So while the bond payment never has to be voted on again,
right?
that's in the general fund.
That's where,
If
that's where I
we're
was
going to transfer it and pay it out of the other fund, then it's gonna get voted
But
on.
why would we? Why would we expose it to being voted on? Why wouldn't we keep it?
And I agree with you, but then we end up with the split
Well, now
the split
So
appropriation
maybe that's what
as
we
far
need
as
to
our
manage.
plan goes. We need to explain that.
True, but maybe
Okay.
we need to manage that.
And that's what we
Yeah.
did this
Okay.
year.
This is why I was
That's what you
saying
were
that we
saying.
need
Fine,
to,
fine.
there's gonna be parts of this that by law, we're required.
So,
Is
so,
the bond specific for those 3 roads?
yes. Well, no,
No,
actually, it's no.
It's
it should be-
highway
It's
improvement
highway
bond.
improvements.
Overall.
We took the 3 roads out just in case, because if we had some extra, we want to be able to use it.
Understood.
Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
Because
Fine.
otherwise we
That's why
pay
I
on
was
things that
asking the
would.
question.
My
because
only
remember
comment
when
on
it's
See, if-
specific to those 3.
If this bond is, if everything comes in, interest rates, time factors, and that comes in correctly. And the bids come in to our benefit. If we have, say, $100,000 left of that, we don't turn that back. We take the full
And
bond.
use it.
There's $100,000 to jump right into the next
The
stretch
next
of
one.
road
Yeah,
that needs to be
yeah,
done.
Right, right.
Cause I got into this in Enfield, I had project money that was specified for a road. And I've got something like $35,000 left from that, and I wanted to start the
Good,
next
because
road.
it was just-
I couldn't because it was specified. In the next town meeting,
Yep.
they denied that same
Denied
amount
that.
of money to start that next project,
So-
so.
We'll cross that little conversation
Yeah.
up to it. All right.
The bond is,
Good.
let's not expose
Oh, no,
the
I,
repaying of the bond to the risk of future votes,
but see,
right?
okay, and the problem is twofold. On either way you do it, it's a little different problem.
Little different problem, okay.
Okay,
All right.
because the issue becomes, let's say we get to the end of the bond.
Yeah.
Okay, for people to understand that that bond payment was technically part of the appropriation, it's supposed to be going to the fund, to the reserve fund. And they're gonna be like, bond's done, we don't have to pay it anymore. No, it's part of the overall plan.
Same that costs every year, but maybe at the end of the bond, 7 years after,
That's where the
maybe
issue.
instead of general fund money, it becomes
Well, no,
capital
so
reserve.
my
money.
point is that means your
To explain it.
appropriation's gonna go from 200,000 to 500,000.
Right, but general fund budget will go
And
down
that's-
by the same amount.
But you gotta
Right?
make that argument.
Gotta make the
It just
argument,
makes
gotta
it
explain
makes
it.
it a risk,
Agreed.
it doesn't make, and it can
Agreed.
screw the plan. This is all
Agreed.
education of the
Yeah,
public.
yeah.
Either way we do it,
Either way.
we're gonna have the same
Well,
concept.
When you say.
So
either
I
way,
would like to see it stay in, the payment stay in the general fund and the other, but I'd like a way for it to show in the budget that they're part of the same allocation of money, and I gotta figure out how to make that look.
We'll work on that.
You know what I'm saying?
We'll
But
talk
that's
more.
kind of the goal, and that's what we're
Yeah,
having,
yeah,
we're having the
fine,
issue,
fine.
the same issue with the
Got it.
lease and the same issue with that. And we'll have the same issue with the bond.
Okay, so that was the second item, road, you say paving, I believe, and I wanna clarify this out loud. Paving means item 3B, road reconstruction, correct? Isn't that, don't you have road reconstruction? as
Yeah, because
opposed
it's
to
not
maintenance?
just paving,
Right,
because
exactly.
it's, the gravel's underneath. We're also
Dig it up,
combining, we're
gravel.
combining the gravel budget into that number.
So am I correct in saying the right words are not paving, they are
Road
road
recon-
reconstruction?
Road
Okay,
reconstruction.
all right, and that's what the capital reserve account
Is for.
was set up for.
Correct.
Road reconstruction,
Yep.
got it. And we do intend to continue that similar to last year, good, good. The next one is EMS or ambulances.
Yeah.
I don't mean this facility, I mean ambulance thing. Last year you did create a sheet,
Mhm.
a separate sheet from the integrated plan. And as I understood it, that was because their fund, the enterprise fund is separate from the town budget. But then I was confused when I saw
Same thing. The
uh,
split.
when I saw a bond article, same kind of thing, all right. What I wanted to do was talk about, do we want to include EMS in the integrated CIP plan this year or not? That's really, I think, the
Basically-
CIP question.
EMS is going, we're gonna say it has its own capital plan. Cause it has a reserve fund.
Correct,
We took, cause the 185,000 is what the town puts into
right,
EMS.
right.
But 100 went to operations, 85 went
Good.
into the other, and
Good.
now that we have the split, but we have the same thing. We have part of it going to operations, part of it going.
But
Yeah,
within
but I
the
guess the
enterprise
question
fund,
is
though.
that
My
something
concern is no matter whether the thing's making money or not, we gotta make sure we're planning for our capital equipment needs.
Right, so but the question is, does this committee need to oversee that?
You should oversee the portion, the capital, like when we do the spreadsheet of the capital, like, here's when we're gonna replace ambulance, here's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it's gonna look like, here's what our appropriation is. And look at that and say, yes,
So
you
it's
should
more
look
of a
at that.
review function than.
That's correct.
Anything else, okay,
Yeah.
so that'll be a
Would
review
you
function.
propose to include it then, right, well, between police and fire, if you will, or
No,
right after fire, or would you continue it on a separate sheet?
actually, it can be,
That's,
we'll continue. We had continued on a separate sheet because it's an enterprise fund, but
Right.
that particular fund now has become its own individual reserve fund.
Mhm.
So we can now put that in the mix, but see, the problem is it doesn't want to calculate in your totals
Right.
because it's
That's
a
the
separate
point.
item, so.
Yeah, well, I
want it
mean, you know, we
calculated
can
in
add
totals.
that as an addendum,
Right.
saying that,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah.
we
Yeah.
reviewed the EMS
Here's
plan.
the
and-
capital
just wanted
plan.
to
Here's
have
what we
this
think about it.
discussion, that's all, okay, good, and the last one is water and sewer, we didn't get into CIP plan last year at all. Should we, do we want to,
Not this
can
year.
we?
Well, the thing is what I would like to do this year, and it's not something that we have to do for, let's call it the budget. But we need to actually put in a spreadsheet that talks about the water system, what its valuation is, what its replacement costs are, and what should its annual appropriation be.
So maybe
So
it's
that-
similar to spreadsheet
Similar to the
EMS.
EMS.
Yeah, basically, you're gonna have a separate one, it's gonna be a water one and a sewer one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Because the problem we have now is not only is it losing a little bit of money every year, the water, let's call it the water enterprise fund. It has no capital plan in it at all.
Yeah.
right, understood.
And so we gotta start throwing something in there.
So you're gonna try to do that this year on a
That's
separate
correct. I
sheet,
would
just
like to have it-
EMS last year.
Right, and once
Fine.
we know,
Good.
you know, water will be
Great.
a little different because. Hopefully, we're gonna be building a whole new water system, so
Nice.
we'll get like a reprieve for 20 years.
Yeah.
But here
With-
again,
With grants funded, the new water
The
system.
new water system right now is all paid for by grants and loans.
Really, oh, great,
Well,
all right.
that's,
That's not
how does the
a loan.
SRF, look? It's not a loan.
No.
that is a
it's-
forgiveness.
It's,
Loan forgiveness?
it's a principal forgiveness.
I like
That's how they want it. We have to say
From the
principal
state or
forgiveness.
from federal?
That one's from the state.
That was from the state, and
That's
they
from the-
informed us that we had it listed wrong.
It's State revolving fund.
Okay, they did, huh?
Principal forgiveness. It's not a grant. It is technically a loan, but we're not gonna have to repay it.
So it's principal forgiveness.
Principal
Got it. I
forgiveness.
don't, you don't have to convince me.
To build on what you
Okay.
said, where we don't have any capital plans in the water or sewer. If it's affordable here, I think we need to do that because we're looking at possibilities for expansion.
Yeah.
And there's going to need to be money there to pay for engineering proposals and study for cost for that. And if we don't have any money in there,
Right. So what I just
Well, I
heard
think-
was we will attempt, excuse me,
Yeah,
we will
yeah.
attempt to do a capital plan this year for the first time. And it might not be perfect, but at least we'll get
Well,
started.
basically
in
what we
that
wanna get to
direction,
is the
right?
number of linear flow pipe, what is the tank doing, what's the intake system, like if we could pick some of the major items and start having some replacement costs. And then start to apply, this is what we're supposed to be,
see,
Right,
one of
well, this
the,
will be the, we're basically saying, with the EMS and with the water and with the sewer, we're gonna have the CIP committee. Operate in like an oversight function, where
Right.
we recommend things, because this is a good forum for
Oh.
that.
But
yeah,
the
you're gonna
funding is
recommend,
not
you're gonna
combined.
recommend,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
once we get this done.
Yeah.
Okay, cause right now. The
Yeah.
water system has to get rate increases right now, like,
Yeah.
should have had them 6
Yeah, well.
months ago.
So
The issue is,
6 years ago.
we're gonna be raising them a lot just to cover operations and to meet the minimums of the
To cover
state.
Current costs.
But then again, when this happens,
Right,
we're gonna be like, how are we gonna fund this?
sure.
they're saying we also have, there's no capital
Right.
on the sewer side. And you have to remember when that system was put in, that every one of those tanks is the same age.
Yep.
They're concrete tanks. A number of them are what you call an H20 load rated tank, because they're under roadways, under driveways. They have a shelf life.
Oh, they do.
Oh, yes. There is a shelf life to these tanks. A lot of that is determined too. If that homeowner, if they added a water softener. That will eat up a tank because it's salt water. depending on what that homeowner is using that system for, the life of that tank. But a tank, DES in most cases, 15 to 20 years. And they want you to start looking at having a plan on hand for replacement.
So,
Okay, well, we can do that.
so we gotta try to do a plan, yeah, okay.
Well, and because the scarier part on the sewer is our whole sewer treatment area is gonna need
Yeah,
a complete renovation.
we've heard
Eventually, that- I
Relatively
was
near
thinking,
future.
Yeah.
all right.
Well, it's
That's gonna
about,
be a
and here
challenging
again,
one, I
some of
think,
that is
so, yeah.
DES is now trying to rule out any open pit facility.
Ooh, ooh,
And their reasons for it
okay,
are kind of questionable, but basically what we are going to end up having to look at is the holding facility so that the surge that's pumped from the tanks can end up going to Plymouth or some other
you're kidding.
for treatment.
You
But
have to pay for
what I
septic.
was talking with John about
Whoa.
is we put in, see what we can get, if there's grants available or anything, to put in a water separator. So that the water that is removed from the septic that's pumped is gray water, which would go through our
That
facility.
would be-
So that reduces,
Greatly reduced.
that greatly
Yeah.
reduces the volume
Yeah,
that is
Yeah.
going to a treatment
Oh,
to, so to make it a little more affordable,
I
but
don't think it would be affordable for us to send it all to an offsite treatment facility.
we,
But they'll
right
break the
now,
bank here.
it's very expensive. But we do not have enough customers to ever put in a full treatment
No, I know.
facility.
Yeah, you're
I
right.
mean, Enfield just went through this
Agreed.
about 4 years ago, but 3 years ago, I think it was, they did a study because of the increased rates to Lebanon. The rates that they are currently paying to Lebanon would just, at that time, would have just covered the salaries of operators and not made a single payment towards the installation of that facility.
Yeah.
So even Enfield having as many customers they have, it's still unaffordable for them
Right.
to have a treatment facility.
Right.
So we know for us, I mean, we have to look at the lesser evil,
Ooh,
which at this point would be a water separator. Can put that water through the treatment we're set up for and then just haul. And depending on the volume of separation you get,
yeah,
whether it even has to go through a tank. Or you can, some of these rotary presses, you can separate that down so it can be hauled as solids.
that could be big.
All right, let's go
All
to
right,
topic
let's move
4.
on. So before we go to topic 4,
Oh,
are
sure.
there any other, I'll call them scope questions like the 4 we just discussed that I didn't think of, that anybody else knows about?
No, we'll bring them all up when the plan gets updated. You guys are.
Okay, I just want.
Well, we'll have the whole thing to
All right,
look
yes.
at.
So number 4, there were 3, I'll call them action items, I call them top, that I carried forward from last year that were discussed in different meetings, different places. The first one was, I think you guys might remember that the way we were planning for the trade-in value on trucks and so on was not clear. The way it was.
Well, it was set up that
Spreadsheet
that
and-
you had in the worksheet has the cost of the truck, the
Right.
trade-in value, and then it was subtracting and putting the net.
Right.
And the
in the
public
front
couldn't
way.
see the net and people were asking questions, is there a trade-in for that? Blah, blah.
We can,
So the
that's an
question is,
easy solution.
Can we look if there's a better way,
Well, the only thing we could do is we're gonna take the back, those 2 back pieces,
right?
put them in the front and then have the net that gets financed. So it's just adding 2 columns. but-
So the general public would see the truck costs 300,000, the
Yeah.
trade-in is 30,
All right,
and the net plan to spend is 270.
and 270 is where the calculations are.
All right. okay.
If we can come up with a number that's worth putting in there for trade-in.
Well, it could be 0.
It could be, we
Yeah.
we
Could
could
be
be just,
zero, most.
Could be-
Yeah, well,
cases,
that's what I'm
zero.
just saying,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
trade-in value it's so flexible
Understood.
depending on,
Well, in the past, what we've tried to do is do a low ball estimate. We see a truck, we say, we're gonna replace it 3 years from now, who the hell knows what trade-in, I understand. We think the old truck might be worth 30,000, maybe we only put 20 in the plan. We lowball it so that we have something there to show the public that we plan to trade in the old vehicle without overestimating how much it could be.
oh,
worth.
yeah. I mean,
You're
this
right.
is. I mean, we know we see just equipment prices in general, what they did in a 2-year period.
Right,
And I mean, I went through this where the only thing I could tell them is that when the new piece of equipment is in, they will at that point be able to tell me
Understood.
what the
That's
trade-in
what-
value that's
Of
coming
course,
off,
of course.
and then we put into that account what the actual cost was.
it's better than putting zero, is my point. Put in a lowball estimate, predict best we can, that's all we can do. So if you could look at doing that a little differently in the spreadsheet, the reason the question came up was because people looking at the plan couldn't tell
Right.
whether or not we're planning a trade-in and for approximately how much. So if you could do that, that'd be good. The next thing I carried forward for an action item was, I think it happened at the deliberative session.
Well,
I
the
think
acquisition
people
year is
requested
actually
We
in
showed
there.
the acquisition year in a
When
column.
you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the year that's on there is the acquisition year, and then there's a year of planned replacement.
Right.
Right,
Okay, once you get to the planned replacement, that acquisition year goes away, and then the.
Another one.
acquisition-
That becomes the
But
acquisition
for the
year.
future planned replacements, as far as I know, the plan we published. What we published did not show acquisition year.
Okay,
That's
and
why
that may, I think, I know it's in the worksheet, so it
It's
might
in the
not be
worksheet,
other, so we
yes.
just have to move that column forward.
The question that was, the request that was made at the deliberative session was that we show it
Right.
in the plan.
No,
that we
these are easy
published.
fixes,
That's what that was, okay.
and
And the
C,
next-
C's actually already done. Simply because now that we have the approval and we're putting things back into the restricted fund.
Yeah.
That's completely separate now, the
Oh,
85,000, so
The
that's
EMS
already,
thing,
yeah,
you
that's
mean, the next
already
one.
covered.
Yeah, got it,
That one's already done.
already done, okay, good. Next thing, does anybody know of any other, how do I say this? Issues, action items, whatever, things we thought last year we should do better or differently this year? Anybody else? Those are the three I remembered.
Well, no, I don't have any specific. I think that, for the time that I've been around here, the last 3 years, this whole process has been evolving. And I think it's gonna continue to evolve a little bit,
course it
which is
will.
good. I mean, I think that we're
Yeah.
making progress, so.
Yeah, the hope
I
is
don't have
we're gonna be much.
There will be
closer.
something.
We're gonna be,
Oh, it'll come-
hopefully
it'll
for this
come up,
next,
but
this
there
next
anything else?
budget year will be much closer to a final product where now we're actually just working with it. Like, we got a little bit more cleanup to do. Getting
Good.
caught up, and
Yeah,
I think we'll
yeah.
be there.
All right, good. So the next thing I simply have just to confirm Zoom arrangements. We're gonna continue, Monica, you can continue to help us this year. It's been great. What you've been doing for us is super and we appreciate it. Okay. We don't want to, okay, that's good. That's that. Now for proposed meeting schedule. I just threw this at the wall to see if it would stick. I'm open to anything. I was thinking generally we should have we're having a meeting in April. We should have one meeting in May, June, July, and August. But then by September, and this is like last year, by September and October, I think we should plan on 2 meetings each of those months.
Sure.
I picked, for what it's worth, Wednesday afternoons at 4 o'clock, because that's where we are now. But I'm wide open to whatever you guys want to set up for this year's proposed schedule.
To be
Don't
honest
forget,
with
we'd like
you,
to post the schedule on the
Don't be
web.
honest, lie to us.
It can change later.
I just would like to, two things I would
Yeah.
like to have
We're
happen.
used to that.
Sure.
One is, it's,
Go ahead.
one is that if we're gonna be doing this at 4 o'clock, that we coordinate it with the budget committee, because I'd like them to be kind of almost back to back, because that one night we'll have a
That'd
half
be
hour
nice.
in
Yeah,
between, and we
that's
do it
fine.
one night.
Yeah.
And
That's
it makes
fine.
my
That'd be
life
great.
easier, my wife is
Right.
working opposite night schedules than I am, so I just
Perfect.
gotta make that work.
One piece at a time, if I may. Scott, is 4 o'clock still an important time for you? Last year was the only time that made sense. to you.
I can
Where you
probably
stand
make
this
it.
year.
I haven't started work this summer. It's not going to be necessarily full-time, but I mean, as long as I know ahead, I should be able to make it work because
Tom?
I'm open.
And
because
like-
I'm the owner of the truck and the
Right.
operator, so.
Let me go back. Last year, what we had done previous years is we met at 8:30 in the morning. And that was a problem for you.
That will not work. That I can
That does
guarantee you.
not-
No.
So what, the rest of us are retired. You
Yeah.
and I and you.
I retired
That's why
2
I'm
years
focusing
ago.
On you. What time of day is best for you? If you say 4 o'clock, that's
Four,
fine.
4 o'clock.
Well, I think from Jeff's point, 4 is good because we can wrap this up.
Well, we
and
can
then
do that
get
with
into
the budget committee.
Yeah.
Cause I would just say,
All right,
let's,
good.
let's stick with the May.
So we're
7th.
gonna stick with 4 o'clock,
7th is
number
no good.
one.
Okay, well, pick whatever one you
And-
pick in May.
Now, May
We'll
7th is.
only do the
Wednesday.
one meeting because we need to have an organizational meeting for the
Put it
budget.
there,
committee.
Yeah,
maybe.
No, it's not a budget thing. This is my baseball commitment.
Oh.
Budget
Is there a
committee-
When do they
Budget
start?
committee, we need to have an organizational meeting with them as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
because
Oh, yeah, Mike Reese was on me already, like, when are we having the meeting, Sal?
you were back, we don't start till June. It's like, no, we need to have one now
So,
because
okay. Get you.
the only thing I wanna do is have an organizational meeting so we can establish
Right.
communications, because
Yeah.
Carrie Ann should be
absolutely.
sending
Absolutely.
the stuff out like now, like when she does her quarterlies.
Would May 14th work better for you for the budget committee too, to give you a chance to have this part, the CIP part of it all finalized? So
No,
you
he's
can carry-
not trying to finalize it that soon.
No, I mean, as far as the organizational
Oh,
part that we talked
organizational,
about.
yeah.
See, Wednesdays in May are very bad for me.
So maybe we go to Thursday, May 8th.
Well, we could do, yes, any other.
Is the,
day.
but next, a question related to that. is,
Yes.
Does the budget committee meet in May?
No, well,
No.
they need to have one meeting.
But it's
They
organizational,
will not have another one till September.
fine. But
So when do you wanna have
I'm
that?
trying to
by
do
the
what
way?
you suggested
as
is
soon
back
as
to
you
back,
As
what
soon as we
day?
can.
I would like to do it before the end of April, so we know and Carrie Ann can start disseminating information. But as far as an official meeting is usually not till, depending on whether
Yeah.
they're third or second or third week of the month, they start like usually around September 20th.
All right, so from now through August, we're not talking about coordinating budget committee dates.
Correct.
Fine, so let's talk the meeting, May 7, we make it May
He
8,
said no for.
I will not be here 7th and 8th. I have surgery.
okay. Do we want to,
How about six?
about the
Hey,
second
it's
select
six.
board? Sure,
Yeah, yeah,
sure, so, all right, so we'll make the first
We'll
one,
make
May
it a 4 and
6.
then I'm having it on select board night. That'll be fine.
That's fine,
Is
yes.
that okay? All
yeah,
right,
May sixth is
so
good.
May 6th, good. Then the next one I had down here was June 4th, again, a Wednesday.
I'm gonna be in Italy. I'm
So-
just coming home from Italy.
So what day would work for you, a week later? Or,
Probably at
well,
least
if
a
that's
week
a
later.
Wednesday, maybe the following Tuesday, how about?
No, Wednesday's fine. I mean, we could do it, after that, my baseball schedule ends
Yeah,
the
Got
28th.
it, got it.
So
So
I'm good.
we'll
Is
go
that
to
the
the
end of the
following
tournament?
Tuesday or Wednesday.
No,
The state tournament over by then?
No,
'Cause I-
but I would make an exception and miss this meeting for the playoff games. And we're planning on those this year. We got a good squad this year, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
June 11th?
So that, I don't know what day of the week that is.
That's a
right now.
Wednesday.
Does that work? That works.
That works for me.
Yeah.
So June 11th,
Because we gotta talk to the select board, because I'm screwing up 2 select board meetings with my trip.
Too bad.
That's
Okay.
I
All you
can't
gotta do
say
is take
what-
it with you and we'll do it there.
okay, so now July,
July 9, because then
Four,
we're
nine, nine.
away from the 4th of July. we
Yeah,
don't
wanna
wanna
be
be
away
there.
from that.
I kind of wanted to ask you guys that, that's
Yep.
right, good.
So what'd you say,
Now-
the 9th?
The 9th,
9, July 9th. Now, August,
let's do early, 6th.
6th or 13th, well, 9th, either 6th or 13th, then I would say. Other people?
And I would,
Dal says 6th, what do you guys think?
and I probably wouldn't go beyond that one, simply because then we're gonna know what our new
Okay,
plan is for the budget committee.
so we'll do the 6th, right?
All
And I
right,
think
And
it's-
then after that, it'll be a TBD.
and then after that, it'll be on the same dates the budget committee is gonna meet.
Right.
We'll try to do
We'll
that.
figure out, coordinate that, so.
Yeah.
Work, and we might be able to coordinate after the conversation, because if they still wanna meet on Thursday, like, we'll just see, but see, Nate kind of drove the Thursdays at 7 o'clock.
I know. We'll
I
have
mean, so we
we'll
have
have
a
that
whole new-
conversation
Yes,
too.
because that's a whole new leadership group there,
Right,
except,
okay.
except for the secretary.
All right,
And I guess my other question is, did Sampson actually retire, resign, or is he
He
still?
resigned from the budget committee.
He did.
He resigned, unresigned, so he could go to deliberative session.
Yes, I know.
And then we asked him and he confirmed, yes, when, with Ann, I said, he's not answering you. I said, send him an email
Yeah.
that says, we assume your resignation is, you resigned and we know you didn't want to till after deliberative
Yeah,
session,
yeah.
so we assume your resignation's in full effect. And the only response was one word, yes.
Okay.
but it responded,
So,
okay,
so that's gonna be an open spot that we then.
You now need to appoint
appoint.
someone. That's correct.
Is that just a 1-year appointment?
That was
or
the
two?
1 year.
That's a one-
That's what I thought.
So
Yeah.
that re-ups next March.
But did somebody get elected for that?
No.
No,
all
because-
the other positions are elected, that one is not.
That's still open.
That
yes.
one's still open. The one-
so I have a suggestion, guys,
So we need to put something eventually, well, after the.
We need to have the
meeting,
meeting and then
And
say,
then we'll
now
figure
we'll
that
probably have to do the same thing with.
Yeah, put it in newsletter.
Yep, Gotcha.
I have a suggestion.
Yep, got it.
What we found useful the last couple of years was to put up on the website, on the town's website, the scheduled meetings for the year. Instead of saying TBD, I could put May 6th, June 11, July 9, August 6th. I'll help, Monica will help with this. I could leave, maybe the budget committee will decide to meet on Wednesdays. Who knows? I could leave the 2 September and October dates the way they are, we can change them later. It's easier to change them later, I think. What do you guys think?
Those are both Wednesdays?
All those are Wednesdays. Not that I'm married to Wednesday, but that was just.
No, the only, yeah, that's just the day after the select board each time, because
Oh.
those are first and.
Yeah,
thirds.
yeah.
I'd like to
Is that
be,
good or bad?
I like to be
Two
determined
nights in a row.
better,
I do
because
determined
it-
right now.
otherwise there's a possibility of confusion.
All right,
If it's to be determined later,
fine.
September and
Okay, next.
October are to be
So
TBD.
those will be TBD.
Yep.
But I do, for all of you guys, I would clearly plan to meet twice each of
Oh,
those months.
absolutely,
That's
yeah,
been,
yeah.
that's been important in the past.
Sure.
All right, good. So
The hope
that's
is
in the
we're
meeting
done, we're
dates.
we're done way earlier than last year because, you know,
Hopefully,
we
yeah.
actually missed the.
We missed
the
the
notice
deadline last
date for the, because the DRA made final changes to ours on the last day
Yeah.
for when we did the notice, but, because we didn't get the final budget till the 16th of January.
Yeah.
And then that just put us right under the gun and then going back and forth with
And
DRA.
For CIP, I was under the gun before Thanksgiving. I spent the weekend before.
Well, the goal is,
Thanksgiving,
we're
the
gonna
whole
be
weekend.
done because.
That's why he doesn't wanna do it.
Because we've already built most of it and we kind of know what we're doing.
Well,
I
At 4 o'clock is
anticipate
good?
being done both of them
we
earlier
heard,
this
we
year.
heard.
Yeah, cause I'm not
Yeah.
planning on tearing it down.
Can I
4
just
o'clock.
confirm the dates one more time?
Sure.
May 6th,
Yep,
June 11th,
yep,
July 9th,
yep,
August 6th.
yep. Got it.
4
Thank you.
o'clock.
Wonderful. So I don't have to send you an email. You can put those on the webpage. Thank you.
You've got to schedule
Thank
them
you.
here too, so.
Thank you.
Yes, I got a schedule here. Yeah,
Excellent.
and I'll take care of that.
Okay, and I've got proposed meetings at 4 o'clock. Oh, I know, we need to get the EOC reserved.
Yeah,
That's what-
working on it
Oh,
right now.
Good. That's what you meant by schedule.
Yeah,
Reserve the room. Okay, got it. And 8, let me see. Oh, not that we should do it here, but can we ask you, Chat, to propose, bring to the next meeting a list of which dates you're gonna invite the fire chief, the police chief, the highway superintendent, et cetera. Put them in the order in which you want them to come to future meetings.
I would
How
not
about
want to
this?
be disrespectful, I'm gonna say no.
How about this?
Only
How
because
about
that
sequential?
meeting's a little too soon. I gotta talk to everybody because it's more gonna be like who's really ready to come finalize. What I
Right.
don't want to do is what we ended up with last year.
Gotcha.
Right,
And like with sewer and water, we were at the last meeting, hadn't reviewed anything, so we basically rewrote the budget in budget committee.
right.
Don't want to be there this year. So
Let
we're
me ask it a
Yeah.
different way.
basically, Carrie Ann and I are going to,
You'll schedule
Hopefully
the department heads. What you're telling me is you don't think you'll have it ready by May 6th.
no,
Fine.
but possibly, well, and I'm not gonna,
I would think.
the only reason is I'm only gonna have 2 weeks. I only have 2 weeks between those 2 meetings
Oh.
because I'm not here for
2 weeks
2
of work, yeah.
So it might be the July one where I have that laid out for you.
Let's ask you to aim for June 11th, if you can.
Yeah, I will, and I'll see
We
what
got
I can
6 or
do.
7 weeks between now and then, so.
Yeah.
I know you'll be away 2 weeks. By the way, I'll be away for 2 weeks in the summer. No, in April, for similar reason, an anniversary. An anniversary drug. I can
But yeah,
sympathize.
and right now, it's just, there's a million things going on. So.
Okay, so that was the next thing. At some point, we do need to schedule the department heads, give them some notice so that
Sure.
they can plan to be available, et cetera.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other business
Okay.
that we should talk about?
Oh, sorry.
No. Nope.
I said motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
I can't take a motion.
I gotta run back to my baseball.